So Candace Owens is ridiculous, and she's incredibly hard to take seriously. And in this clip I'm about to show you guys, you get a little taste of that because she's going to tell us what she feels is the biggest problem facing America. And so we're going to play the clip, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about it.
It is just, there is no systemic racism. There is no law. There is nothing that says that I can't do something as a black person that you can do. So it's completely false. What we're really talking about is the fact that people want to absolve themselves of personal responsibility, and we're being helped. If there's anything that's systemic in America today, it's white guilt. And that's the biggest problem that we have in America today is white guilt. It's been institutionalized. It's been politicized.
All right, so we have her here. She's saying that the biggest problem facing America is white guilt. So that's just that in and of itself is such a funny claim. But let's follow the logic here. So there is no such thing as systemic racism in this country. That is what she's saying. And her argument for that is, well, there's no laws on the books that like make it harder for black people. There are no specific laws. She goes, so it can't be systemic because of that. Common conservative talking point. But then she goes, you know what is systemic? White guilt. It is systemic, it has been institutionalized, but like I think she forgot the definition she literally just gave for what she is saying systemic means. Because there's no laws on the book saying that we need to have white guilt in this country. There's nothing like that. There's nothing even remotely close to that. And there has never been any laws in the books about white guilt in this country. But on the flip side, there have been laws in this country regarding black Americans that specifically discriminated against black Americans, where you couldn't vote, you couldn't own property. There's specific things. You couldn't marry people of other races. There were tons of things. Slavery was a thing. And so those were all laws on the books. They're not on the books today, but we still see the ramifications of those policies playing out today. And I think that for her to say that there's no such thing as systemic racism, but then also at the same time unironically say, but you know what is systemic? White guilt. And to call that the biggest problem facing America is so absurd. I've actually never heard her say this before. I haven't seen a whole lot of her talking. I've seen a good amount, but I've never heard her say that before. But I don't even know what that means. Like the idea, and also I mean just the irony of saying that, like, oh, there's like not enough people saying like taking responsibility, but like, oh, the biggest problem is that people feel guilty. Obviously it's more complicated. I understand that what she's trying to say is more complicated than that, but still this idea that white guilt is the biggest problem facing our country, really, I don't even think I think that white guilt is largely, I know that there are some people who say like, oh, like white liberals, that they like want to do things because they feel like they are somehow personally guilty for like what has happened with racism. And I know that there's stuff with like white privilege, but to call that the biggest, not like unemployment rate 10.2%, not the pandemic that we're facing right now, none of those things, not the fact, like all the different things that are going on, homelessness crisis, anything, all the people that die every year because they don't have healthcare. No, it's not it. It's just, I mean, that absurd. It is absurd what she is saying there. And it's just like people take her seriously. People point to her as a conservative figurehead. People want to prop her up. And it just shows that there is no logic to what she is saying. And I really don't like assigning like bad intent to people. But it's so hard not to do that with Candace Owens. It is so hard not to do that because I really feel like she sometimes is not being sincere about what she's saying, or at very least, I think that she's fed talking points that she espouses, because I don't see that that's not a logical thing what she's saying. She gave a definition and then literally disproved that definition immediately. And you see people do this in like a less direct way. Like people don't usually do it like one after another. Like Charlie Kirk will say, which is ironic because Charlie Kirk and Candace Owens have worked closely together. Charlie Kirk will say, "Oh, there's no such thing as systemic racism in this country," but then he says, "Oh, Twitter is like systemically like oppressing conservatives, or like social media in general." And then like he'll say, "Well, there's no like specific laws against conservatives," but he'll say, "Well, the rules of Twitter or social media, the way that they're working is they're disproportionately negatively affecting conservatives." That's his argument. So he can like understand the logic of something being systemic without it being an actual like literal rule. He can understand it in the social media context, but he can't understand it in the systemic racism context. That's at least a little bit better than what Candace Owens just did. It's still bad. I mean, it's still bad. Don't get me wrong. But this is just like directly disproving herself. And so it's like, one, it's either systemic or not. Like she's giving two things. Maybe you don't like the word systemic. I mean, I try not to get caught up in these semantics games. I mean, I know that that's a problem a lot of people have with the idea of the definition of racism. Some people say that you can't be racist unless you're in like a position of power, and then other people think it's just the idea that one race is being like above another race, is that's the definition of racism. So there is I try not to get lost in those semantic arguments because I don't think that they're especially helpful. So whether or not you want to call it systemic, okay, there is a problem. That's the thing. I use the word systemic, but like I would never get lost in that, and to the point where like we lose track of what we're arguing about. But this, she has given the reason why it's not systemic, and then she says white guilt is systemic. Crazy, crazy, crazy. It doesn't make any sense. It follows no logic. And the idea that white guilt is even a problem in this country. It's not. The biggest problem we're facing? No way. Not at all. Candace Owens. Silly, silly person. Anyway, if you guys disagree with anything I said in this video, please leave a comment down below. If I got anything wrong, please let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like and subscribe, and have a great day.